Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
And we are honored and privileged today to have a very distinguished guest, the chairman of the State Conservative Party, Gerard Kassar. Jesse, would you be kind enough to introduce Mr. Kassar?
Sure. Gerard Kassar is a dear friend of mine, and we've known each other in politics and in government since 1994 when we were working. We first met on an upset assembly race that we did during the Pataki victory, where we elected an assemblywoman and knocked off a 20-year Democratic incumbent there in the state assembly. And throughout the years, both in government and politics, our lives have intersected several times. And a brilliant political mind, a brilliant man when it comes to philosophy, and it's great to have him here to get his point of view, his 30,000 foot view of what the state of the state is. So, Chairman Gerard Kassar of the State Conservative Party, thank you so much for joining us here in the Long Island Report.
Well, you're very welcome. And first, let me just say to you that some of my happiest times were actually involved in those early days doing a lot of grassroots work in Suffolk County. I mean, that was Deborah Mazzarelli, that race. And there were many, many races, many fantastic people in Suffolk County that I had an opportunity to work with over a number of years. I live in Brooklyn. I live in Bay Ridge. You know, it can be in the summer a bit of a problem getting into Suffolk, but generally speaking, it was a quick ride, whether I was operating out of Islip or whether I was operating out of the Sag Harbor area. So those were very memorable times. As far as New York State is concerned, there is really no measurement where you would not conclude that the GOP and conservative parties are going to have a good year. I mean, I think the question becomes, are we going to have a good year, a very good year, or an off-the-charts year? Mike and Jesse and others are working under a belief that, unfortunately, in a way, due to incredibly inept Democratic policies in the state, we are actually going for all of it, the ball of wax, as they say. We're going for the whole thing, and that involves governor, and that involves many state legislative seats, congressional seats, and assembly seats. Now, you would expect me to have a partisan position, but this is why I think we are on the right track, and it's basically because you don't have to do a poll, you don't have to do a canvass, you don't have to do any of those things to know that people in this state are incredibly upset with crime and inflation and the economy. And inasmuch as that on a statewide level and in D.C., we are not in power at this point in time, there's really no one else to blame but the Democrats. Now, I believe we will do, because of our positions on issues, an exceptionally better job. But people tend, in my view, to want to know that the candidates we're running can manage a situation, also tend to vote against what they know is not working out. And the crime and the inflation are clearly, I think most people know that Republicans will do a far better job on crime, whether it be the bail reform or the fact that you don't have to go to a Republican politician and actually ask them if they are for or against defunding police. You know where it is. If you've got to start asking Democrats that question, I know that they have a problem. So do you want me to make some educated I don't look at my stuff as educated guesses, frankly, but I want to, if you'd like, I can give you my own view of where we are going, or maybe we want to have other pieces of a discussion at this point. Whatever you gentlemen like.
Jesse, what do you say?
I think we should, let's get your view of that. Let's continue with this discussion along that way and where you think we're going to end up.
Well, I'm going to, and in some of this, Jesse, you should feed right into because a lot of it involves Long Island. I believe that essentially every state legislative seat on Long Island, not everyone, but essentially everyone is going to end up Republican after this particular year. I think you've got two, but you do have the issues going for you, and you do have a bunch of bad Democratic votes, but you also managed in both Suffolk and Nassau to come up with a high-quality set of candidates. Now, it is politics. Everything doesn't always work out, but with your recent history, really a little more than a cycle. Everybody talks about a cycle, but in Suffolk County, you've been performing really exceptional for several cycles. I would really predict that most every state legislative seat ends up our way, and I'm going to be very straight with you. I think we're going to end up with 4 congressional seats on the island when you include the outgoing Rice seat and you include Santos, and you certainly have, Garbarino, and I believe because of your efforts, Lolota and Suffolk. So, I think you end up with 4 seats, and that is a pickup on Long Island. I do think that the city is different. I don't see any reason why Nicole Maliotakis wouldn't win again in a landslide, frankly. She just is a super incumbent. And, we do have some, and I do think we actually are going to pick up 1 or 2 assembly seats in the city. I'm not sure about Senate seats, but I do believe we're going to pick up 1 or 2 state assembly seats in the city. But more importantly in the city is this. So let's flip over to the governor's race for just a moment. They always play with these stats, whether you need 28% or 32% or 31% to elect a statewide governor. And I think we do know that Lee Zeldin is the perfect candidate for city residents to get behind because he is kind of in the general area, knowing city issues coming out of Suffolk County. I think it's also because of intense mismanagement in the city, where a lot of people are looking for a mechanism to come, people have to leave the city. And frankly, 400,000 people did leave the city. And those 400,000 people, many of them are Democratic voters. I guess some ended up in the Hamptons, but are Democratic voters who in turn will cause Lee to be much, much more competitive in the city. And recent polling, admittedly done by the Zeldin organization, but polling that I've had a chance to look at pretty closely indicates that 32%. Lee is heading towards 32, 33% right now, which is a sufficient vote for him to become governor in the city. I want to remind people that when we did those propositions last year and opposed those propositions, the Conservative Party, we won New York City. It wasn't close. We won New York City on those propositions which reflected Republican conservative ideology.
Those propositions, if I could just remind the listeners, those dealt with first day
election day voting,
no excuse absentee balloting, and I believe there was one more. Which was that?
Yeah, it was the reapportionment. It was the one that would
reapportionment. That's right.
It took an incredibly partisan Democratic reapportionment and made it more partisan.
Yes.
And that got defeated, and that actually played a role in our winning this past year the lawsuit, so we ended up with a fair reapportionment. So I think New York City is New York City is one of the progressive hubs of the East Coast, but I'm just suggesting that there's evidence that we are doing better here than really a lot of the Democrats would like to admit. I think when you get into the Mid-Hudson, I think we're going to have 3 wins. I think Michael Lawler is going to get elected to Congress. I think Colin Schmidt's going to get elected to Congress. And Mark Molinaro is running in a special election next Tuesday, where I believe he's going to end up winning, which will actually put the Republicans in the House of Representatives within 4 or 5 seats of a majority next week. So I do feel that is happening. I do know that there is a likelihood that they will pick up a state Senate seat in the Mid-Hudson, if not 2. You get up to the Albany area, you got Liz Joy running against Congressman Tonko, exceptional candidate. You also have state Senate seats in play in that area. My general prediction is the state Senate's going to pick up 5 to 8 seats, and that eliminates this supermajority that the Democrats have used to their political advantage, to the people's
disadvantage
of the states.
Well, let me ask you, Jerry. Let me ask you. That's a very good political analysis. But I want to talk to you about a couple of issues that bother me terribly. One is this congestion pricing.
Oh, yeah.
Legislation that they're pushing through, and Governor Hochul says she's not going to do anything to slow it down or to re-examine it. What are your thoughts about congestion pricing?
I live in Brooklyn. Absolutely disgraceful. So right now, for me to go into Manhattan, I pay. If I take the Brooklyn Bridge, it's free, and if I take the Battery Tunnel, I pay like a certain round trip with my Easy Pass. What will happen here is that I will go to $23 and I think 75 cents. Where if I take I think I'm like around $13. That's an extra $10. If I take the Brooklyn Bridge, it's going to be $23.75 or something. And to be honest with you, it's nothing now. So why do I need another tax on me? It is not unusual for me to make a quick trip into the city once a week or twice a week. It is not unusual at all. I don't need to take a subway to Midtown where I can get in and out faster by car. This is about me, the taxpayer, not about Manhattan. They used to call them limousine liberals, but now I guess they're bus liberals or A-train liberals or something. I don't know. I just know that if I have to spend an extra $1,000 a year going into Manhattan and my neighbor's the same, and I don't even go in regularly, that is another tax on me. And in Long Island, it's not going to be any better, and a lot of people don't want to take the subways anymore. I was talking to a lady this morning about the Long Island Railroad who actually lives in East Hampton, and she's willing to take the Long Island Railroad in, but she has no intention of transferring from that railroad onto a subway. So she isn't coming in by mass transit, and it's just not going to happen. So, it is a disaster. Well, Jersey's got its complaints.
In fact, Jersey has a problem. All the suburbs have a problem. Connecticut has a problem.
There's an additional issue. Torres in the Bronx, they talk about environmental justice. It's not environmental justice if all of a sudden, because of a plan, hundreds, if not thousands, of new vehicles don't come into the city during a normal route and start figuring out a way to come in through the South Bronx and any minority area. Because of just the way it hooks up in Manhattan, it is incredibly thoughtless.
It's a pollution creator.
Right. And the planning was done in 2019. That's when they did it. They did it before the pandemic. So let's get real. This is just another revenue source for the MTA to cover their bond covenants because they know they can't. How many times can they push back the bonds? How many times can they do that? Are on the precipice of some sort of default that the government cannot allow, and you and me are going to pick up the coverage. I don't see as much in terms of buses and capital as I see as much in debt service.
And you also have the problem of we're trying to recover from the COVID economic disaster, and you can discourage tourism. That's going to be an awful problem on the tourism. Because tourism in the city is not just somebody flying in from Germany. It's about those shows on Wednesday afternoons and every night. When I say I go into the city, I'm usually going in for a meeting or something where I'm having a meal or with my wife going to see a show. That is good. Look, will I still go in? Absolutely. But I'm just simply saying to you, because I'm going to go in. But why they do this to me? Why should they do this to me? Why should they do this to Jesse? Why should they do this to you? Well, by the way, and I live in Manhattan, but if I go below 60th Street, I get hit too. So
exactly,
the only winner here is the MTA, which has mismanaged their budget, both capital and expense, and getting them a revenue grab at the expense of the larger issues and the tax-paying public.
Correct.
Let me ask you this last question before we take the break. What's the best argument you can make as a person who understands government and public policy why it's essential that we do not have a one-party state?
Because it's the only way you get balance, and incredibly inept ideas are either slowed down or stopped. And I will say New York has definitely become a cesspool of bad ideas.
Jesse.
Jerry, I truly appreciate it. And you're right about the cesspool of bad ideas. And those bad ideas are now being replicated in other parts of the country, which now everyone is feeling. But we're the test bed here for this type of stuff. Yeah. As we see the Zeldin race going in, you mentioned New York City, because as we've been seeing, and whether you do polling or not do polling, just the reaction of voters when they see Lee Zeldin in his quest for running for governor, you see him making inroads in the Asian community. You see him making inroads in the Hispanic community. Yeah. You see him making inroads in the members of the Jewish community that have not traditionally been Republican. We see that his message, and I want to make sure I'm not just just touting the party line, because we've seen it here, but his message is resonating and it's crossing over party lines in the city, which is helping him build a bigger base in the city that will help him in upstate and otherwise in his quest.
Well, I agree with you. I've also had the opportunity, although I don't travel with Lee, I do have some level of coordination with his schedule. So I do intercept him in different parts of the state. So, I'm not, giving you the Brooklyn perspective. I think I see this anywhere I go. I've actually, I've been interacting with him on the trail for over a year. I don't actually believe I've seen him go anywhere where he hasn't gotten a good reception. And the crowds, some of the crowds are extraordinarily large. I mean, he doesn't get a bad crowd anywhere, but sometimes he gets like these incredibly large crowds. So that to me shows enthusiasm for his message and, frankly, the desire to have change here.
Well, Gerard Kassar, chairman of the State Conservative Party, Jesse and I are delighted that you've shared some time with us on the Long Island Report. We appreciate what you do for New York City and for New York State. We appreciate your wisdom and your experience. On behalf of Jesse and myself, once again, we want to thank you